I call it a podcast, but it's really a video cast because
Oh, you got a video in it, are you?
yeah. So
Oh, I thought it was only sound.
no,
That's
no.
more problematic. I don't always have a good poker face.
Sneaked up on that because I thought it was just sound.
Would you have done your hair differently?
I would have done a hair different.
So welcome to this SEBA cast, and I am delighted that I've got some really special guests with us today. We've got Cassie, who's our new treasurer, a part of our trustee body, and Richard, who is our new operations manager, so part of our regional ministry team. And we thought it'd be great if we could just have a conversation together and introduce these people and partly say big thank you to them for being willing to serve God with us through SEBA. So, hi Richard, how are you?
Hello, Joth. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Good. And Cassie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Great to see you both. Thank you so much for being willing to share a little bit about yourselves. We just want to get to know you a little bit, and won't have a lot of time, but it'd be good to hear a little bit about your lives. So, Richard, let me ask you a question about the people that you love, your family, those around you. What's your context? What's your background?
Yeah, so I'm married to Elaine. Been married a long time. Don't test me on that. No,
Come on, how many years?
37. I might get that wrong.
That's right.
I think it's 37. I won't let Elaine watch it. And then I've got two grown-up daughters, and with a grandchild each, so a grandson and a granddaughter, both toddlers. So so Elaine helps out with the childcare, so that keeps her busy, and she's also part-time teaching as well.
So you've actually got something in common, you two, because you've got toddlers in your life, Richard, but you've also got toddlers in your life, haven't you, Cassie?
Yeah, so I've got three boys, all under the age of 5. So yeah. Times has just started school. He's 4. Percy is nearly 3. He'll be 3 at Christmas, and then the baby Flynn is nearly 7 months old. So
Yeah, 7 months already. That's amazing.
it's gone fast.
It doesn't feel like yesterday that he arrived in the world. But you're married too?
Yep. So my husband Tom is a Baptist minister himself. We're down in Swalcliffe, and we've only been married because Richard's got 37 years, which is longer than I've been alive. But we've been married now for 7.5 years. So
That's good. Yeah. And you're in Swalcliffe on the North Kent coast. And Richard, where are you based?
I'm based in Brayborn, just outside Ashford.
And have you lived there all your life, or are you a Kent boy?
I was born in Ashford. Moved to Tunbridge Wells when I was 4, and grew up in Tunbridge Wells. And then we moved back to Ashford about a year after we got married. So.
And Cassie, you're a treasurer, so one assumes you have some knowledge of finances. So what did you study at Reading?
well, I do. I studied maths and meteorology when I was at university. Yeah, so I wanted to do maths, but I didn't trust I wouldn't get bored if I was just doing straight maths. And I probably would have done. So I think I know myself quite well in that sense. So I also combined it with meteorology, which is a study of the weather, because I was studying physics at the time, and I thought, well, I've got the right subjects at school, so I'll go and do it. And I did really enjoy it, really fascinated by it, but it became clear quite quickly I wasn't going to make it in that field, because you just have to be very invested in it to get far in it. So it just, it made for an interesting degree.
So you went down the accountancy route after university, yeah, yeah. But you could have become a weather girl, couldn't you?
I debated it, and it was funny when we then moved to Wingham, because Michael Fish was from Wingham. So. But yeah, no, I went into accountancy instead. Tom thought it would suit me, and he was right. And I've been doing that now for almost 10 years.
And Richard, what's your route in your career? Because you're at the other end of your career to some extent.
I am. I'm kind of approaching the end of my career that's Nearly all of it's been in public sector. So I've been in the fire service for 16 years. Very much in a support role, back office. I've never been operational. It's the first thing when people always ask me is, have I been a firefighter?
I was going to ask that question. I was going to say, have you ever fought a fire?
Save you the bother. So my career in the fire service has been sort of quite varied, but I would say it's all sort of mainly sort of project management and sort of improving processes or policies or culture, all those sort of things. More recently, I've been doing lots of stuff around customer service and strategy. And then prior to that, I worked for a local authority, down in Folkestone for about 16 years as well, actually. And then I had a short time in between where I worked for myself as a consultant, mainly in London. But my career started completely differently. I actually started in horticulture, so I got a degree in landscape management. And that's mainly what I did for the council. And then I sort of diversified into other things outside. So I was managing sort of refuse management and highways and you name it really. If it was outside, I was managing it. And then sort of diversified eventually into sort of more sort of corporate stuff and project management really and programs. So it's quite sort of varied, but always public sector because I always believed very strongly in trying to serve people. I wasn't really interested in working in a private company that was all about profit. I really wanted to do something that was kind of worthwhile, really. So.
Okay, accountancy and operations managers. It doesn't sound like the most exciting roles in life to some of us that are kind of out there and doing adventurous things. But I'm sure you're fun people. So, I mean, Cassie, if you have a day off and you could do anything you want, to go and do something, that's fun. What would you do? Chase a storm?
I mean, I guess it depends if that's like fun with the kids or fun without the kids.
Oh, well, let's do both. Let's do one with the kids and one without.
Well, fun with the kids. I love getting them out and about because they are they're typical boys. It's probably the best way of putting it. So they have a lot of energy to run off, and it's always fun to see them doing that. And we love doing things like we're going to go to Legoland after Christmas and things like that. We've got Disney booked for next year, so like to try and get those kind of memories where they're so little is a real privilege, I think. But then if I get some free time where I get to be an actual adult, I like going out for dinner and doing those kind of things that you don't get access to sometimes actually once you've got kids. But if nothing else, you'll probably find me with a good book.
And what about you, Richard? This may surprise you. This answer. Just actually.
Do you want me to go straight onto that?
I don't know. Well, you said something to me the other day, and I was like, "Oh my life, I didn't."
Yeah, so you're referring to the fact I do paragliding. I say I do paragliding. I don't actually get much time to do paragliding, but if I had the time and the weather plays ball, then that's what I really enjoy doing. So paragliding off the hills, mainly around Kent, sometimes into Sussex. For those people who don't know what paragliding is, it's sort of like a parachute, really, but you go off a hill and then try to stay up and hopefully go higher, a bit like you sort of see birds doing, sort of start soaring and then catch a thermal and go up high. So, and I have done that quite a lot. Going abroad as well into the Alps. That's really special because then you're in spectacular scenery and going up to, so I've been up to about 8,000 foot, which is, a bit frightening, but also amazing.
I always wonder how on earth you manage to land those things in the right place. It's like, it's okay jumping off and, once you're up in the sky, that must be wonderful. And then going, oh dear, how do I put my feet back on the ground?
Planning, and I'd like to say always land in the right place, but I can't. That would be lying. So occasionally you don't land in the right place, but that's another story. And then obviously like spend time with the grandchildren. It's really nice when you can hand them back as well sometimes. That's really good. And then we've got a dog as well, a Cocker Spaniel, so he needs walking a couple of times a day.
Okay, I mean it's really interesting to get to know. It's interesting to hear what people do, in their spare time and what kind of floats their boat. What about faith then, Cassie? How did you come to faith?
So I was involved in the Girls' Brigade when I was younger. I started there as a child for a friend. And there was a camp we used to go to every single year at the Boys' Brigade headquarters, Fern Foundations. And it was unlike a
Oh, I
lot
know
of
it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, vis-a-vis, we used to be involved with Girls' Brigade and involved with foundations. Yeah.
Yeah. So it holds a really special place in my heart actually, because it's also where I got to know my husband a bit better. I'd known him for a long time. But yeah, so I'd been going to that for a few years, and it's probably really the only church input I got because my parents don't have faith. So I wasn't had any church input in any way other than that. And I remember going for a few years and just being like, something feels like, just ignoring like a feeling, just feeling like really just unsettled by it. And then just one year, just really feeling like, actually, no, this is God calling to me. I think I must have been 17. So I started exploring it at that point, and was then baptized not long after I was 18. And yeah, ever since I stayed involved in Girls' Grade for a number of years when I was at university and stuff. And yeah, I took a step out at that point and was going to church on my own, which was a big deal because like none of my family went and some of my friends didn't go. But kept going and then ended up married to a Baptist minister. So now it's just par for the course.
What about you, Richard?
Yeah, so I was kind of brought up nominally going to church, or mainly Sunday school, I suppose, in Church of England. So my parents weren't Christians at that time, but they'd also been brought up going to church, as people did, I suppose, in those generations. And so we used to pack off to go to Sunday school, and then I went to confirmation classes in the Church of England. And it was around about that time, so I was sort of teenager, 16, 17, when my dad became a Christian, and it was a very sort of dramatic conversion really for him. He had a complete sort of change around. And to me, I was kind of looking at him and thinking, wow, this all makes sense. It was almost like the penny dropped, and rather than it just being religion, it was kind of, actually, this is kind of real. This kind of all makes sense now. Everyone else was looking at him and thinking he's having some kind of mental breakdown because it was such a big change. So I became Christian around about that time at Come Bless the Lord meeting. I don't know if people have heard of Come Bless the Lord meetings in Tunbridge Wells. Which
is great. And now both of you, at different stages of your life, have found yourself as part of your love and worship for God and for Christ, serving in SEBA. How did, Richard, for you as someone in the fire service, did you ever expect you might be serving in a Christian charity and supporting churches in that way?
Not really, but I'd sort of the last, I suppose, maybe 2 or 3 years, I felt kind of quite unsettled in my role, and I had this sort of nagging feeling that God was going to sort of give me something completely different. And I started to explore taking early retirement from the fire service. So I'm not quite as old as I look. So I was sort of thinking, can I take a sort of phased retirement? So I was I can't remember whether I was fully committed to that, but I was certainly exploring that when I saw the role advertised at SEBA. And I was looking to go down to 3 days with the fire service, and then for a year, I then go down to 4 days for a year, then down to 3 days for a year. And obviously the role at SEBA was advertised at 2 days. So I spoke to our pastor Mark at Willsborough and sort of said, what do you think? Do you think I'll be suitable for this? And do you think they would sort of consider 1 day a week? And he said, well, give Joth a ring. So that's when I rang you up and you were saying, well, no, really, it's 2 days a week. I can't really do it for less than 2 days. So then I said, well, it feels right. I'm going to put an application in anyway. And then obviously we had the interview, and then we sort of negotiated, and I'm able to step up to 2 days quicker than I expected. So I will. I don't know if you mentioned, so I'm doing 1 day a week at the moment, but it'll be 2 days from January.
And Cassie, I mean, did you ever expect to be the treasurer of a Baptist association?
Depends if you're asking me now or if you're asking like 18-year-old me, because I remember 18-year-old me being very surprised when my husband told me that he first thought he wanted to go into ministry. So 18-year-old me would have had no expectations of this whatsoever. But I wouldn't know, it's not surprising at all. Obviously, I'd mentioned earlier that I moved job roles because I'd felt unsettled. And I found that, especially as Tom got further in his ministry life, I really struggled with the fact that I wasn't giving back. And it felt like more and more like it's unsettled. It's such a, like when Richard was mentioning it, I thought it's so funny how some of our stories so parallel, despite being so, obviously so different. I remember felt unsettled for such a while. And then obviously I moved and took on a slightly different role at work, which meant I then was building up this charity experience. And with Tom and I've been talking for a while about taking on like trustee roles. I'd been looking at them on like websites that advertise for trustees, and nothing had really like felt right. And then I remember the day that the email came round about looking for a treasurer, and I was like, that could be a bit of me. And I was reading all the description, and I was like, that could be a bit of me. But I was like, oh, what if it's too much time? What if I haven't got the time? I was really looking actually for I can't think of the word of it, like barriers, essentially. I was almost searching for the barriers to it. And I remember I was saying to Tom, text Paul Curley, I need to know what the time commitment is. And I ended up speaking, I think, to almost everybody in SEBA. But I spoke to Dave, was the previous ops manager. I spoke to Malcolm, obviously Joth, we spoke. I'm pretty sure I spoke to Paul at some point. And I was searching it out. And I vividly remember saying to myself, after Tom and I talked about it and prayed about it, right, I'm going to speak to my boss at work because I have to clear this with her. And I'm going to see what she says. And if she says she doesn't think it's manageable, then that's God saying, no, you really can't do this right now. So I sort of went in really like trepidation, and I told her, and she went, well, I think it'd be good for you. See if they won't mind if you wait up to a little bit further down the line from the baby. And I was like, oh, okay, this is real then. Like, this is really what God wants me to be doing at the moment with these skills. So it just came at a really opportune time in terms of actually getting to use my skill set for good. Like, that sounds silly because it always sounds like I've got some like superhero. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm Clark Kent almost, and I'm my boring accountant, and then I become like a superhero accountant. But like I'm actually getting to use my skill set for good, for something that I wasn't heavily invested in anyway, with Tom, but actually just to use my skills to serve God as well. It just all lines up very well. And while it's there is always going to be times where it's a stretch on my time, actually it's a valuable stretch on my time, and so far I'm enjoying it, I'd say.
I just love the story of how God equips us and takes us on a journey and gives us the gifts that belong to him, but he gives us those gifts so that he might draw us in to his kingdom work. And both of you have got already stories about how God has been moulding you, creating you, preparing you, getting you ready for whatever the moment is in that journey. And we're just delighted that both of you have joined the team. But yeah, just delighted with all the skill that God has given you to serve us in that way, and ultimately to serve Jesus. So bless you. It's been great. I mean, I've got to know you both a little bit more. There's bits of the story that I hadn't heard before. So that's really great. And hopefully everyone else has enjoyed getting to know you and hearing about your stories. So thank you for watching SEBAcast, and we'll be back. I will be back in probably a few weeks' time. I'm hoping to speak to Alex Harris and Ruth Rice all about Ministers' Conference. So tune in for that as well. God bless you all, and thanks again to Cassie and Richard.